Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dr. Denise Keating Show. I am super excited to have the next group of people on the podcast to talk about California. One of the things you guys know already is that we are coming to the kitchen table to talk and have a conversation. So we're going to ask questions. We're going to be talking in a group setting. So this could be a little bit different, might have some more tension and opportunity for accidentally speaking over each other. But we're going to be really careful of not yelling at each other, screaming at each other, flipping each other off. What are all those things? Don't do that. We're going to do nice things. We're going to actually try to give each other opportunities to explain themselves. And we're going to invite you, as that fly on the wall, to listen of how we would have this conversation. I always find it's harder to have a group dialogue because there's more people. That can be more scary, but it also might make us want to be more quiet because we don't want to be the one to say what's different in the group. So I'm going to have both of you guys introduce yourselves. Go ahead and go first, Daniel, and then Gio, introduce yourself. What do you guys do? Who are you? What should we listen to? No, I was kidding.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting us on and having us on to be on your podcast. My name's Daniel. I am one of the hosts of Latino Free Minds. I usually co-host with my brother-in-law Danny. I also have Gio here that occasionally co-hosts as well, and my cousin Christian is the other host. So it's kind of been four of us that have been doing our show, and we kind of we've rotated in and out, and now we kind of I like Gio say Gio's got his show with Christian, and then I do Latino Free Minds with my brother-in-law. But we started this in 2022. I want to say October, November.
Okay.
It was right after the no, a little bit before the election for governor in
Yeah.
22 when it was Brian Dolly and Gavin Newsom. And we were kind of talking, myself and Danny, and we just thought, like, man, like, kind of what you were saying before we started recording. It's like people got to be able to have conversations without getting uh, all emotional and you know what I mean, just fighting that
Yep.
separation. So that's kind of the main goal of starting the podcast is just to have different conversations with people. Well, initially it was just us, and then it evolved into having more people on and stuff like that. But we were in a sense tired of people being manipulated,
Yeah.
especially in the Latino community. It gets real emotional, and people don't want to listen to you because once they got their mind set on something, it's kind of hard to break through, and you kind of avoid the conversations, right? Because yeah,
Yeah.
you rather not deal with it. But we were kind of in a sense tired of that, and we started Latino Free Minds, and we've been going since then. So that's kind of
Okay.
brief on
I love
my
that.
end.
And Gio, what about you? What do you do? Who are you?
Well, like Daniel said, I started as a co-host on Latino Free Minds. I would tap in from now and then. I when before Daniel started the podcast, he was telling me of his idea, and I told him, I actually thought about doing that. I've been thinking about doing that since like 2018, 2019. I've been wanting to start a podcast, but my
Yeah.
fear was always, you know, I'm not a political expert.
Right.
Uh, you know,
The
uh,
narrative here in California. If you're not like the expert, you
yeah.
can't
You
talk.
don't know everything, right?
Yeah.
If you're not Rachel Maddow or Tucker Carlson, nobody wants to hear from you.
It's true.
Uh,
Yeah.
so, unfortunately, it took me a long time to get comfortable enough to put myself out there. I also
Mhm.
work in the technology industry, and my fear was if I ever really get into that, I'm gonna be what do they call it? Blackballed or blacklisted or whatever they call it. So my fear was to get out there and then suddenly I can't work.
Hmm.
And for me, most important is being able to support my family.
Yeah.
But it got to a point where I'm sitting there watching Latino Free Minds, and they're 90 episodes in, and I'm just like, I had come in a few times and talked a little bit, always restraining, but it was that episode 100 or I jumped in and just started putting out my political opinions.
So
And
cast push Daniel out.
no, no. Daniel has always been the. To me, he's kind of like the leader of Latino Free Minds. But Daniel reached out to me and he goes, "Hey, do you think you can come in on DMU? Don't mind us." It was a new podcast that he started with Christian, and it was kind of the same thing with Latino Free Minds, but just more of an open discussion. You can kind of say whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
And I was like, well,
You're
it sounds kind of scary because
you're
what if
like,
someone
no,
from church sees it?
I need yours.
uh, but I went on, and immediately afterwards, Daniel's like, I loved it, man. You and Christian just have an energy. The
Yeah.
chemistry is
Yeah.
perfect. You have to keep coming back. And I became addicted. It was my new drug.
It is.
So so every Tuesday I'm letting my wife know like, hey, at 6:30 I'm
I'm
gonna go in the
yelling
room.
at the
I'm gonna
screen.
start getting
Don't
ready.
miss it.
And we go
Oh,
live. It's like no
I
edits.
love that.
Yeah, just do it, and whatever is said. We're not gonna cut it. We're not gonna change it. And for me, it's just preparing what are the hot topics,
Mhm.
what's going on specifically in California, what's going on in the U.S. politically, and we might even talk about some things that are going on culturally, if I think that they're affecting the political space. You know, kind of
Yeah.
like the American Eagle campaign, and not so much. We didn't spend a lot of time on the Sydney Sweeney thing, but more so um, what are they doing at the sorority houses, type situations. So it's the fun show for me. But I always love to go back to Latino Free Minds and
Yeah.
put my suit and tie on.
I love that. I know for me, it was kind of funny because I was sitting down with my husband talking about, like, yeah, like I'm definitely more into talking about politics now more than ever. And he's like, well, I really saw a shift. So we've been started dating in 2017 and got married. And he said in 2018 is when he saw a really big shift for me to just freely talk about it with him. But I would not talk about with my family because my family was like, I'm from a big family. I'm one of 11 kids, but like Christmas and Thanksgiving would be like 45 people.
Mm.
And we'd invite all our friends. Like that's just how it was. We would invite friends. And so it was like a massive group. And you would see like one person say something, and it was usually wrong, which was crazy to me because I was like, that's actually not true. And a huge fight would break out. People would be yelling, screaming, storming off. But then you would see like half the room get up and leave as soon as the conversation started, and then like another quarter of the room get up and leave, and there's like two or three people just arguing with each other, and the rest of us are just outside because we're just like, man, like half of what they're saying is not even true. Like
Mhm.
they are. There's a couple people that I know in my family who are definitely the. I saw it on TikTok. I saw it on Facebook. I saw it on. And
Mhm.
I'm like, but
And
did
that
you
always gets you into trouble, doesn't it?
up? And if I said that, like, I it would be bad. And like then I ended up going through my PhD program and I really learned how to research. And so then I started looking at stuff and I was like, oh my gosh, like half the stuff I believed was wrong. Oh man, like that's horrible. But it is wild that when you try to say like, well, immediate argument. It didn't matter if I once told I looked at my husband and I said, it isn't about what I'm saying. It's the fact that it didn't come out of their mouth that they just want to yell at me. Because I would say the same thing as that they were saying, and they'd still yell and scream and talk over me. So that's where it was kind of interesting how I started this kind of segment of the podcast where I was like, I want to just have that kitchen table talk conversation because no matter where I looked, in person and online, people could not talk about politics. And I know, Daniel, you said that like within the Latino community, there is a huge, like it's emotional. So can you talk me through why is it emotional? What does that look like in the Latino community that might be different than other communities?
Yeah, from my point of view, and I agree with what you said. That's kind of what we were noticing. You couldn't talk to family about certain things, or you gotta tiptoe around subjects and stuff like that. Um, and it's just for us, it's the manipulation. We we see, for example, the Spanish news media, it's completely swayed to the left, right?
Oh.
There is no real, if you want to call it a Fox News of Spanish media. You know, there's
Mm,
some small channels here and there that you could kind of find on Instagram, but one where your tia is gonna click on the TV and kind of get the Fox News of Spanish, its language, it's not gonna happen. So a lot of what's said on those uh, channels like Univision and Telemundo is just manipulative. You know, they play into the Latinos emotion, right? The pride. A lot of if you're Mexican, you're from El Salvador, wherever you got pride in where you're from, where
mm,
your roots are.
yeah.
And that manipulation that we were seeing came from all over the place, like the news media, from celebrities, what you see on social media. It's just in schools, all over the place. And it just gets people emotional, and then they don't even listen to the full scope of what's going on.
Yeah.
It's just, oh, okay, like, you know, overgeneralized. Like when you talk about the border, you don't want Mexicans here. It's like, no, it's not necessarily, that's not it. The border includes so many other aspects. It's like what do you call it? It's like an onion, right? There's so many layers to it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it has to do with that, with not having people that are saying, you know what, no, maybe that's not true. Or like you said, I
Mm,
looked this up, and I'm kind of seeing it this out of context. Clips is a huge thing, especially in
yeah.
Spanish media.
Yeah.
So that's kind of to kind of go back into the podcast and why we started it. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, we're gonna talk about these things, and there's things that got to get debunked, and doesn't seem like a lot of people are doing it. So we just wanted to be that avenue, or that source of just a different perspective.
Yeah.
So that's because we are prideful people, and
Same.
sometimes that kind of just blinds you you know
Yeah. Well, it's wild to me because so I grew up in California my whole life, but I've grown up in Southern California. We've always been like the only white person in like our community, but then like we'd go other places and obviously there it was like mixed. But in high school we had a lot of race wars, and I mean like every year we had some sort of riot or fight. And it was, when I was little, we lived in Los Angeles. We had drive-bys. But then when we moved to Fontana, it was like, oh, okay, that's where a lot of gangs tried to get out of LA and ended up in Fontana. And then that the kids were in school together. And so it was interesting to hear a lot of my Mexican friends say stuff like that. And it would be this every single time. If you're like, oh, I have Mexican friends, they're like, no, 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 I'm from Cuba. I'm not from Mexico. I'm from here. I'm not from there. And you're just like, it was like, don't you dare mislabel me. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm learning. Like, this is the first time I'm in school because I was homeschooled before that. But a lot of my friends, it really was like, well, are you from Mexico, Mexican, or are you like your parents and grandparents from Mexico and you were born here? Because that's just different. And I didn't recognize it until it like just how bad it was, until I started not how bad it was, but like how bad that pride was until I started dating someone who was Mexican, and his parents were like, "Why did you bring a white girl into this house?" And I was like, "Oh shoot, like I don't know what to do about this." But he was like, "Look, like his grandma was really racist toward me," and I was like, "I didn't know that could happen." And I
that
just it's
that's
the first time I was exposed to all of that. But it
that's
was
one
like
thing.
laugh. It's funny. Like I was just like, I didn't know. But yeah, it's a thing. But it's not just with white people. It's every single group. It's like, okay, we're Mexico, from Cuba, we're from Spain, we're from oh my gosh, Haiti. Like you don't mix it. Argentinian, like one friend of mine was Argentinian, and he was like, "Don't you dare!" I was like, I'm so sorry. But it is why what is it that is that the television still creating the division and the divisiveness, or is there a lot of reasons behind that?
For that specific, I think it's more reasons beyond the media on that, in that aspect. I think like you said, people don't want to admit it, but you know every race has a little bit of racism,
We do
you know,
all of them.
and
Very
it's true. You know, people don't want to admit it. They just want to point at everyone else and tell everyone else that they're racist, but they don't acknowledge, you know, the what's the word? Was it the prejudice or like whatever it is that you know we kind of grow up with? It's not something that's like malicious. It's just like, oh, you know, yeah, I'm not Argentinian. I'm not, you know, don't call me this, don't call me that. It's just again, it goes back to that pride, right? You're if you're Mexican, you're Mexican.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I think that is just kind of just people being super prideful. I don't know what Geo thinks, but that's kind of how I look at it.
yeah, that makes sense. Peter, what about you? We're just going
Uh,
into real hardcore stuff. Sorry, guys. Harsh, a little bit of bitterness wrapped up. Just kidding.
I think there's just pride in where people come from.
Mhm.
Um, Specifically with like my parents, they come from Mexico. They do have a lot of pride in where they came from, but at the same time, um, they came here with a purpose. Their families came here for a reason, here to the United States. It was never with an intention of we're going to take it back type situation like you hear these kids in LA saying. It was more of an intention of we're gonna go make a better lives for ourselves. And when they had kids, us, there was that effort of okay, we have a better life here than we had in Mexico. We were poor in Mexico. Um, Here we have the opportunity to build ourselves up. We didn't get this opportunity in Mexico, um, and as they raised us, that was always the intention. We're doing our best to give you everything we can so that you can go further than us.
Yeah,
And I have the same intention with my kids.
yeah,
Whatever I do, it's so that they can have a better life than I had.
yeah,
And hopefully when we're 4 or 5 generations out, hopefully we're a old time money type family. I don't know, probably not, but at least I just hope that my kids and their kids can live here in the U.S. with um, living in decent enough areas. Homeowners is very important to me. It was important for my father to be a homeowner.
yeah,
He owns multiple homes. You know, my dad has always been the type of person buy everything out. I don't believe in credit type situation. And
I
it's
get,
always just that pride of trying to do better than what he had growing up. And
yeah,
I think a lot of people have that pride and they don't see outside of that. Because
right,
when you really when you come here, you try to find people that are like you so that you have the common um, uh, growth, the common community. Everybody kind of knows what we went through or what we're going through here in the U.S. The Mexicans kind of stick to the Mexican areas. The Chileans stick to the Chilean areas. The Argentinians stick to the Argentinian areas. But eventually, you do get to a point, maybe not that first generation, but that second generation, where you start to mix a little bit. And that pride that you had, you still instilled it in your kids. And that's where some of this starts to come out like, oh, I thought we were better than you type situation. I kind of saw that growing up. I'm first generation. My parents are from Mexico, but I'm the third born. And while my first language was Spanish, I quickly learned English, and that's the main language that I spoke. So at school, I didn't really get along with the other Mexican kids because they all spoke Spanish and they all stuck to the Spanish community. I started school in one part of Sacramento and moved to a completely different part of Sacramento. So I didn't know those kids. The kids that
yeah,
were accepting to me were the black kids. So from first grade up until almost high school, all my friends were black. So that's the community that I identified with. Um, so I didn't have that pride of like, oh, Mexicans are better than anybody else type situation. To me, it was more like hey, I'm American, because
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Mexican kids, they didn't accept me. The Salvadoran kids, they didn't accept me. The Americans, the black kids, they accepted me.
yeah,
So I've always had that pride, and it's something that I talk about on DMU and Latino Free Minds. Is,
yeah,
I have a slightly different perspective than the normal quote unquote Latino, which is, Latinos is such a massive community.
yeah.
It's kind of hard to pinpoint that down.
Yeah, I feel like it's hard. So I was homeschooled until high school, and then high school I was like, I just need friends, and so like my friends were really diverse. Like I don't. I look at all of my friends. I'm like, okay, I was a friend with a white kid, a black kid, Mexican, El Salvadorian, people who didn't speak English, someone who spoke Chinese, and I was just like, look, you're my friend. We didn't couldn't communicate sometimes, but whatever. But I really struggle with identifying, as it's gonna sound weird, as a white person, because I'm like, what do we have? Like, what traditions do we have? What do we believe? I don't know. But my dad was someone who he always was like, oh, we are like, my whole family lied about what we really were, and so they were like, oh, we're Cherokee Indian, we're Blackfoot Indian, we're this, we're that, and then my dad like was like, oh, I'm Chinese, I'm this because I can handle the food, and I'm like what? This makes no sense. he he was so dumb. Like I heard him one time, and I was like, okay, you don't know what we are. That has to tell me all of that. But like when I turned like 2021, I moved away from like all my friends, and I met new people. And someone's like, "Dude, you're so ghetto." And I was like, "What?" I did not notice it. Recently found video of me talking, and I was like, oh, I looked like that. Like I was trying to be that white girl who was trying to be something else. And I was like, no, that was just because that's California. Like you just grow up in a mixed area, you're going to pick up a lot of different stuff. But when people say things, I'm like, I don't relate to that. I think California is very different where we really have been a melting pot, but like you go out of state and it's so different elsewhere. And I'm just like, yeah, there's a lot of people who are white that hang out with each other. And I'm like, I look at my friends, I'm like, none of us have anything in common except for where we went to school or church or college. Like that's it. But I think it makes it hard when you're trying to identify off of race instead of like beliefs. And I think that that's why I'm always related toward my friends who have like just the the bootstrap people where it's like we came here to try to make a difference. We tried to grow up like I was in poverty and then foster care and like raising my siblings. So I've always gravitated toward people who are just like, I want to be a hard worker. I want to have a better life. I don't want to sit trailer trash status, like because that was kind of like what some of my friends were. And I was like, my brother always said like he's like we're rednecks, and I would get so offended because I'm like I'm not, you are, but I'm not. Like no, but then I look back and I'm like, oh my god, we're like yeah, that makes sense. But that I think is it's hard when you don't have like you can't find who you relate to when it's so just so different. So people will say things and I'm like, I don't relate to that, which I think is a good thing, but it can make you feel for a while like you lost who you are or who you are connected to. But I do like not being like, yeah, I'm a white girl. Be like, I know I'm white, like yeah, whatever. But I'm not like one of those Valley girls from like me and my cousins always said it. We're like, like we're not that. We're like LA girls. Like that's who we are. And everyone's just like, what? I'm like, there's a difference. Just look at them.
Yeah.
So for you guys, like we've been talking about how long have you guys been in, like born and raised California for both of you, or
Oh yeah,
Yep.
born and
born and
Born
raised in
and raised.
California. I've lived all over California,
all over? Yeah,
Sacramento, Fresno. I lived in Los Angeles.
I
Yeah.
stayed in the Empire. That's where I stayed. So for you guys, what when you see what's going on, let's talk about what's going on currently, and then how is that different within what you guys grew up with. So there's lots going on in California right now. So if you guys want to take it away, just explain it for anybody listening.
Um, I think what's going on today is, when we were little, I grew up in the Bay Area, and the Bay Area was always, a really nice place to be. Um, and then as I got older, I kind of started seeing that it's like it wasn't that great. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, I didn't pay attention to politics out of high school or anything like that, but I could vote. Um, I didn't I would go vote and I would not know honestly what I was voting for. And as I got older and I started seeing things and paying a little bit more attention, I started seeing how the people we were voting for made a difference.
Mm-hmm.
I started seeing how the bills we would vote for made a huge difference. I started noticing that when you look at your ballot and the title of the bill is there, that's just wordplay. Um,
Yeah.
so all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff, like we would start to notice, and then which kind of led us into the podcast itself. But I think California has just been so overrun by one party that there is no balance, and a lot of the reason for that lack of balance is I'm gonna go back to it again is manipulation
Mm-hmm.
because people think the Democrats are the party of the people. Now I'm not saying all Democrats are bad. We literally just had one on a couple weeks ago, and he seemed reasonable.
Yeah.
But the party as a whole and what they're doing, what they're trying to pass, the leaders that they have in that party right now,
Mm-hmm.
Gavin Newsom, you know, Scott Wiener, Nancy Pelosi, like all those people, I can't say that they have our best
Right.
interest at heart.
Right.
They haven't done anything other than pander and not deliver. So I think that's why we are where we are. We've been promised a beautiful golden state, but it's not even close to that. So I just think it has to do a lot with manipulation and
Yeah.
just people are getting tricked into voting. And, I could go on forever. And
And
we don't
trick.
even know who votes. So
I've seen them being tricked out of voting, saying it doesn't matter. It's not going to matter because everything's rigged, and it's like you
oh,
still need to vote so we can show that it's rigged.
mhm. That's one
Like,
thing I'll say.
yeah,
We've never discouraged people from voting. I've
you know,
seen other organizations that have
yeah,
discouraged people from voting here in California, and we're never going to do that. We're always going to tell people pay attention and go vote.
yeah,
I think we handle ourselves differently than a lot of content creators. That's
yeah,
kind of what I think. A lot of people do things for likes and views and followings. I get it; it's part of the thing, but then you don't get real information.
yeah,
Me and Gio talk about it all the time. You're not doing something that's gonna move the needle. You're not gonna convince someone that already hates you if you just post things that are in a sense making fun of what they believe in. you know
yeah, yeah,
you're not going to get anywhere just catering to each extreme. So we try to focus on a moderate way to be in the focus on what more people agree on, make that the
yeah.
focus. And there's people that are in the middle, they don't know what to believe. So we
Maybe,
try to give
yeah,
them takes that try to make be reasonable in a sense.
yeah. I think it's hard because it's like I know you talked about like the ballot. Sometimes the verbiage on it's really tricky, and I remember in 2022 it was about like basically like getting hard on crime where we wanted to actually have the state act, and they purposely changed the verbiage on the actual ballot that you voted on compared to the book that you took. And so a bunch of people, instead of reading it, they just marked what they had in their book and went on their way. And then we found out that they purposely switched the verbiage. So voting no was for them to allow it, and voting yes, like something like that, was like it was for them to like not actually push through with crime, and then yes was to like do the opposite. But in the ballot, it was flipped, and I'm just like that like
No.
shocked me because I used that ballot so well. Like I would sit there and read on it, mark everything down instead of just read it. And when I went back to my ballot and what it voted for, I was like, oh no, like I also felt tricked on that, and that really annoyed me. What about you, Gio? Like, what when you're talking through a lot of this, what do you find?
Well, I come at it with the perspective of I um, grew up thinking I was a liberal. Um, it was very popular when I was a kid. Bill Clinton. he was such a cool guy because,
I
you
think
know,
Christian voted for Hillary.
that's my co-host. You know,
Describe
he did certain things in the Oval Office. Uh, as a as a young person, you're like, wow, what a cool guy, Bill Clinton. He gets all excuse my language, but I was like, oh, he gets all the hoes, like whatever.
Peaceful.
And then um, when I actually became of age, my like
He's not
I turned
lying.
18. Sorry for all the viewers out there.
That's
Uh,
why he's on Don't Mind Us.
so when I became of age and I got to vote for the first time, it was the first Obama McCain election. And I remember in that election, it was, well, we don't want to vote for McCain because he's a racist. Yeah, that's what everybody's saying. He's a racist.
Yeah.
You know why? I don't know. Plus, he's got all this weird controversy stuff. You know, I was always a conspiracy theorist. So I'm like, oh, he's got the Blackbird stuff and the stuff in Vietnam. He was turning over his fellow soldiers. You know, whether that's true or not, I don't know now. But
Never looked into
I
it. We believe.
yeah, I will say like I believed it. I believed the hype. And then 2012 came around, and I was like, oh, I mean, they're saying Mitt Romney's racist too. I can't vote for a racist. So we're going to vote for Obama again. And I never really paid attention to politics.
Yeah.
But the next election came around, and here came uh, the um, uh, the Munsters grandpa and Ted Cruz. I always thought, like, man, this guy looks funny. And Jeb Bush, I was like, Jeb Bush, like, I thought the whole Florida stuff was like, you can't run for president now after your big mess in Florida. And Donald Trump, I was like, the the guy from what was the name of the
The
show again?
Apprentice.
The Apprentice is running for president. This is gonna be this is a comedy. So I
Yeah.
tuned into the debate, and we're sitting there watching, and I'm like, you know what? This guy's making a lot of sense. A lot of the stuff he's saying is true. You know, the stuff he says about the border, some of the people that cross over. I got some cousins that are under some trouble. So, you know what? I can't disagree with anything that he's saying. But over the next week, I hear a lot of things on Univision and the Spanish media. I hear a lot of things from CNN, MSNBC. And I'm like, are we just going to pretend like he didn't make some clear points, some realistic points? We're
Yeah.
just gonna like go off of these sound bites. So that's when I really started paying attention to politics, and I
Yeah.
really started liking Donald Trump. Like, he's not holding back for anybody; he's saying it all.
Yeah.
And I would watch everything and then tune into the news, and I'd be like, "Oh wow, he had a whole day of good content, and you chose those 10 seconds."
And it was
Um,
really twisted. That was what
and
was eye
twisted.
opening to me. Was in like, okay, so my parents were always like every president was the Antichrist. So every time it was election season, it's the Antichrist. And I was like, oh God, it's gonna happen. Like the rapture, I'm dead. Screwed. So I would be so scared at election time thinking that this new president would be, the end of all of us. And I was
Yeah.
like praying so hard. And then in high school, my one of my teachers actually was basically walked us through election, and somebody in the class said, he's like, mine's just one vote, it doesn't matter. And he's like, one vote actually does, it could help or hurt our country. And so he actually had us all kind of take this test to where we stood, and a lot of our class was liberal. I was more independent. But then there was like one person who was like really close to like socialism and stuff, and he was like, "Ooh, you're dangerous." And I was like, "Wait." And that's when we learned what socialism was, and all of the other stuff. And so he was like, "Okay, we need to dig into this because you guys need to understand what actually matters."
Yeah.
And I remember a lot of us wanting to vote for more wage because we were just like, this is going to be so good. And he's like, okay, when you go to vote, keep in mind that if it is going to raise money, that usually comes from you. And, I was like, okay, but I'm going to do the wage. So I like secretly voted. I thought, against his will, was like secretly voted for like our wages to increase, and then immediately saw how that impacted us when all of the prices of living and food went up. And I was like, this is not what I voted for. And it's like, well, technically, yes, it is 100%.
Yeah.
When you raise wages, you force businesses to raise prices. And that was shocking to me. But I remember when Hillary Clinton went, and a lot of people's memes were like, oh, we don't need Bill in the office again. He's going to be sleeping with all the interns. And I was like, what? So that was like the first time I really learned what happened. And I was just like, every politician is whack, dude. Like, they're all shady. But like you said, everything on the media, when they wanted to tear like apart the person they didn't want to win, they would say all of this stuff, take a ton of stuff out of context, put these videos together. And I was like, I literally thought Trump was saying these things about Mexican people. And it was like he was talking about like real criminals, not my friends who are Mexican, who did nothing wrong. But that was really eye-opening to me. And I'm like, there are things that he says that I'm like, if you just shut your mouth, you would be like, people would love you. And I say that every time. I'm like, dude, stop talking. Like, what are you doing? But you're right. Like, he says a lot of things that make sense from a business standpoint. And I know this election cycle, so many people said, we're not a business, we're a country. And I was like, we are a business. Not the way you think it is, but yes, the country needs that mindset of like, this is a business. Because when you run it like a business, you actually look at the numbers. When you run it like a country, you do it based off popularity. And that's kind of what I saw someone, I don't remember who said that, but someone had explained that. And I was like, that's actually valid. But I do see so many people still taking stuff out of context where they
I do remember in 2016 a lot of people were saying that like he's a businessman, he's not a politician, and the country isn't a business.
the
And
country, and I'm like, no,
back then
it hasn't
back
worked.
then I was so scared. I'd be like, yeah.
I was
In my
shaking.
head, I'm like, I'm voting for the guy though. I'm gonna
So
vote for him because he makes
historians,
sense.
we were fine. I
And
look
it,
back at 2016 me, and I'm like, girl, you just fear everything.
yeah. Oh,
But
everybody was scared, but between 2016 and like 2019,
yeah,
we were living great. I mean, the, money went far back then,
I
and
know.
then COVID hit, and then it was like the end of the world.
So 2016, well, in 2015, I took my siblings in, five of them. So it was family of six, and I only made like $18,000 for the year. That following year, 2016 to 2019, was a big, like, me starting to make more money because I got my bachelor's, my master's done. And I look back and I'm like, how the heck did I make it off of $35,000 for six of us? And it was because things were not that bad. And I mean, like, I, I was overdrawn sometimes, like, not gonna lie, but like, it was okay. It wasn't
Yeah.
ideal, but it was like I was at least surviving better. But now it's like I have to make, I think I saw a statistic, not a statistic, but a report that says in California, for they considered $100,000 now to be poverty
Well, yeah.
level. And I'm like, or to be poor. And I'm like,
I
Yeah,
can
that's
and
it.
imagine
it's funny because there's I don't know if you guys have seen the meme where it's like I'm making the most I've ever made, but I'm still broke.
that. Yeah. I'm poorer than I've ever been.
Yeah,
I
poorer
own
than
it
I've ever been.
100%. And I'm like,
And it's crazy because yeah, it's in certain counties you make 100K, you're considered low income. Um, and we did a video about it the other day where it's like a living wage, quote unquote, what Democrats like to say. If in California you'd have to, and depending on county, right, make 133 grand just to get by okay. Like not like you're doing good. Like it's like you're getting by.
there is no savings. That's still technically like paycheck
Yeah.
to every other
Yeah,
paycheck.
exactly.
Exactly.
It's
And
kind of like,
and I think the average family gets about 73,000 a year. So
yeah.
it's like, and that's not living, that's surviving. Um
Hmm.
and it's just all the policies. You kind of said it earlier, right? It's things that, maybe we're at fault because we voted for it 10, 15 years ago, and
Our fault, 100%.
it's still,
It was,
affecting
sorry,
us.
it's just
you
the
know
three of us.
so
Our
yeah,
bad.
it's we gotta, we got to make some corrections, right? And like you
Yeah.
said, now every time I see where your taxes will increase by, they always try to put like a small percentage. Like, no, that's too much. Sorry,
I'm
it
like,
should be
Right.
zero.
Any little bit is a lot.
I need
if
that
it's more than if it's more than zero, it's too much.
100%.
Um,
Well, because in
but
California, like this is what's so wild about California, and I don't think people understand this if they don't live here. We have been voting for construction to be done. We have been voting for metro to be fixed, for train stations and transportation for public. And it literally the same construction that was going on in high school in 2004 to 2008 is still ongoing today in 2025.
mhm,
And that's what's so wild to me. And they're like, we need more money. We need more money. And I'm like, bro, you said this was going to be done in 2008. Like,
mhm.
what? And this is the same dude running in California. And I'm like, I think, what was it that they said? I saw it today where it said Newsom proposed to fix the homeless issue in 5 years. It's taken him 22 years. And I'm like, that's California for you, though. With everything. That's why we have like half a mile of construction that was done on what was it, the metro that's supposed to take us everywhere, and it's not even a mile?
You know,
Like,
that's a huge reason that we do
because
what
it's
we do.
all.
Because it's not that we know everything.
No,
Now we might
no.
not we might be wrong sometimes, but we look at things, we look things up, do our research, try to find out this and that, and it's like, you know we we're living in the same, we're like you said, we're getting paid, we're paying more fees to the DMV for roads. We're paying taxes for a high speed rail. We pay taxes for infrastructure, for schools, for parks, property taxes, all this stuff, and everything's just, nothing's improved, nothing's done.
Now, in
And
the nice areas of California, the rich areas, absolutely it has.
oh yeah,
But in our normal areas, our poor areas, it hasn't been touched.
yeah,
And like, that's what's wild to me.
yeah,
Yeah.
and we're trying to battle that, because the media doesn't really talk about it.
No.
And honestly, when it comes to California, a lot of the top conservative influencers, or whatever you want to call them, usually just laugh at the state.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah,
find it
It,
we find it within us, and I'll let you go right now, Joe. We find it within us that it's like, okay, well, if everyone's gonna laugh at the state, then you know we're gonna turn it around, and then we'll see who's laughing at the end, because California is a beautiful state,
it is.
and it's easy. Well, for some, it's easy to just get up and leave. Others, it's not. And then
Yeah.
there's some of us that just won't leave. So we're gonna be, you know,
I,
maybe a
I
thorn in the side. But you go ahead.
I
Sorry.
think the big message that everyone is saying right now is like, oh, have fun, California. You're downhill from here, or it's not worth saving. And I understand the families that had to leave due to finances, like they just could not financially survive here. I get that. But then there's people who are just like, oh, it's worth like, even trying, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm doing it because I just don't want to deal with it anymore. And I'm like, y'all, like, whatever happens chases you. Like, you know that saying that they say, like, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas? What happens in California will follow you. Like that happens in Vegas as well. Like it will eventually
yeah.
follow you. And I think that's not what used to be. Like older generations, it was like you could go to a different state, make a life for yourself, and be well off. Now it's just following everybody. But Gio, what do you have to say about it?
We made this concerted effort a few months ago, between Latino Free Minds and our umbrella lead, which includes my podcast DMU and several other podcasts. That we were going to focus on California,
Okay.
and what really got us to focus on California, because it's easy for me, for Don't Mind Us, to talk about all the things that are happening nationally,
Right, right,
because
right,
there's so many great stories nationally.
right.
um, but what really got it was two things. It was first all of the conservative influencers. When you go on X, they're I call it slam dunking on the Democrats, or on the liberals. You go on there and they're just like, look at these libtards doing this and that, and it's like Daniel said earlier. We talk about it, and it's like that's not changing hearts of people,
No.
especially here in California.
Mm-hmm.
But then, I'm sorry, I have to get a little bit political here,
Oh,
and
is that not what we're doing?
what I have to say is
Where am
just
I?
my opinion. It's just my opinion.
Oh,
So there was a candidate, a Republican candidate, that put his hat in the race, and the same exact day, all of the national conservative influencers came out and backed him. Um, uh, it, so the candidate is Steve Hilton. And what really got me was there was a guy from Arizona who's a huge conservative podcaster, and I like his content. He helped Donald Trump win. It was Daniel. What was his name again?
Why you gotta make me say it, Gio?
Say it, bro.
Charlie Kirk, bro.
Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk comes out and says, "Oh, I'm backing Steve Hilton," and I was like, "Wait a
friend.
minute, where does
Yeah.
Charlie Kirk live?" And Daniel goes, "He lives in Arizona." I was like, "Well, what? Why is he putting in his
When friends
opinion?
call,
He doesn't live here. He doesn't know what we need."
his friend, he called his friends and said, "I need help getting elected." And so, what did his friends do? They showed up and said, "Yeah, we'll stamp you." But
Exactly, and all the conservative influencers were saying the same thing, and I
yeah,
was like, "Who the heck is Steve Hilton?" I mean, I've seen him on Fox News, but
he's like,
really, who the heck is this guy? He doesn't have a resume to run for. Oh, here we go.
I don't know
So
that. I just,
I was really upset, and
no, yeah.
and you can ask everybody with lead. I was kind of like the one person that was like, I can't. We got him to come onto the show, but in the back, I was the only one that was like, well, I wasn't the only one, but I was really the most vocal one that was like, I really don't like this guy, but let's give him a chance to come on and try to convince us. And
Mm-hmm.
then last minute, he pulled out.
Mm.
Um, for some reason that I think is not valid, um, because of the type of podcast that he's been on. I to me, it's just we just didn't have the numbers for him or something. Or
He only
I actually think there's a different reason.
can say what it is.
I think there's gatekeepers around him.
On the big
Um,
channels, and we're too small for them. But then you have Bianco, who's like, "Yeah, I'll sit down with someone who has one follower because it's just like, what was the purpose is to give information." And like, I know there's
well,
other candidates that are the same way, and I haven't
yeah,
been able to talk to them.
Bianco
Like,
was never afraid to come on our podcast.
Mhm.
He was never afraid to come on.
yeah,
And with Steve Hilton, I think that there was another organization, another Latino organization that stepped in and really got in the way of that. And
mm,
I say that because they're very vocal. They come on our page and they're like, "Well, you guys don't have any followers. You guys have like what, like 300 followers?" And this was a few months ago, and we've been kind of taking off since then because in the background, we're like, "Well, all right, well, we're going to grow this, and we're going to get to a point where." They can continue posting their little TikTok clips of these are what the libtards are doing, and we're going to go out there and post real clips about what's really happening and trying to change California. We come up with these ideas. We're texting the group, and we're like, "Hey, we think." Hey, Gio, we think you should make this video because you're always talking about immigration. Can you
yeah,
make this video about your opinion and what they should do? And I'm like, yeah, I don't care if people learn my opinion. And I'll go in the comments and people are like, you're don't blah trash blah 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 don't. And I'm just like, look, my opinion is my opinion, but I'm trying to get you to
right.
think about it. Just like what we do here, right? Sit around the table and talk about these things. And I sent Daniel this message like, hey. Um, you're always up and down California. If you're near the high speed rail, you should make a video of the high speed rail. And the
Yeah,
very next day, he's like, "All right, it's going live." The video with the high speed rail in the background, and perfect timing because the governor just talking about it. And I was like, "This is awesome. These are the type of things that we need to be doing. This is how we win back California. It's not um, this person was on fentanyl in San Bernardino, and this is what the liberals have you. This is how the liberals have California." And every time I see that, I'm like, okay, let's fast forward 2 years when a perfect world, and let's just say Chad Bianco's the governor.
Mm-hmm.
It's still going to happen in San Bernardino where the guy's on fentanyl. We're not going to change those things overnight.
Right.
People are still going to do drugs. People are still going to be stupid. And what's going to happen in 2 years? The other side's going to go, "This is what you voted for, conservatives, you stupid
Yeah.
dummies." And it's like, we're just going to slam dunk on each other instead of actually calling out policies. Hey,
Yes.
stop voting for these things. What's really going on out there?
But bullying doesn't. I really hate on both sides that bullying
Mm-hmm.
is a thing, and I've called people out on it where it's like, people are just like, oh, it's the libs. I was like, it's also conservatives, it's also Republicans, it's also independents. Like we all are doing it where we're bullying each other, we're mocking each other. We're just like, oh, like the thing that I have always heard that pisses me off is just like it'll be a specific, usually I've heard it around, like my friends who are Mexican have expressed it more where they have said like we're always told that we're just the people in the fields, the maids, and then, like that pisses me off because I'm just like, bro, like I know so many people who are so smart, like what the heck, like but also that's not a bad job either, like why are you coming down on somebody who's trying to work hard to have a good life? Like, why would you do that? And it really, what it is, it's clickbait. We just, people don't understand what that is. They don't understand what that is. It's literally someone posting something to get a response, to make people upset, to get the comments, to grow the views.
Yeah.
And what I find so funny is that so many people care about numbers. First off, you can buy views on social media. You can buy followings on social media. I've done it in the past because someone told me to do it, and then it was like, well, I deleted all of them anyway because they were bots. Like, I was like, that was dumb. That was a stupid way to try to grow because I thought they were like people. But we hear this over and over: numbers matter, numbers matter. But someone said something to me where she's like, if you have 300 people who are engaged in your content, 300 people, and that's it, and then someone who has 1 million people and only 300 are engaged in your content, the person with 300 invested, they are actually successful versus the person who has 1 million eyes and only 300 people engaging. But there is a concept that I've always sat back in, is that if it changes one view for one person, that's life changing. Maybe I'm not the person who reaches 1,000. Maybe I'm not the person who reaches the 1,000,000. Maybe I'm just the one person that reaches the one person who, like, multi-level marketing reaches the 5 and
Yeah.
it leads. But that's what with Steve Hilton, I don't understand, where I'm like, dude, you have an opportunity to grow here, but he's making himself look like an idiot. I was going to say something else, but I was like, it's going to get filtered. He's just making himself look like he's very out of touch. When I found out he had only lived here for almost 4 years now, I was like, oh yeah, that makes so much sense. You're trying to go with the big people so that you can get your name out there faster, but he's actually not. Like, so many people were like, who is that guy? What?
Yeah.
Bianco's out there. I know there's another guy, I forget his name. He's really trying to get his name out there. But it's wild to me that people think like
Yeah.
we have to bully each other to get there.
Yeah, no, it's funny you say that because that's something that we've always said on Latino Free Minds too. Is even if we just reach one person,
It's worth it to me.
it's
Yeah.
worth it, right? And we've had David Serpa, Daniel
Yeah.
Mercury,
Yeah.
Zaki, and Chad Bianco so far.
I love that.
And none of them cared about the following
No.
count when we picked
Because
them.
they all are service based people, where they realize that, like, if I sit down and talk with one person, it might reach somebody else who can make a decision. And what I've noticed when I started looking at the candidates is that normally they're not playing the political game where it's like, let me bully on that candidate and bully on this. They've all kind of been like, what's happening in California is not working.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they call it out. They're not attacking their opponents. They're just
Yeah,
like,
cordial.
and that's what's wild to me, because that's not what you see in politics. You
Yeah,
see,
I was surprised. We get to talk to them before and after, and they're kind of like, oh yeah, I was talking to so and so, and I'm like, you were talking to, that's the ops. You're not supposed to talk to him. But they're like, no, I mean, whatever it comes down to, it's we're trying to win this for the conservatives in California, and I'm like, oh wow, you guys are doing the same thing. You guys have the same mission as us.
yeah,
You really want to win.
and
And they're like, well, the
help make health
GOP,
better. Yeah,
yeah, but the big party doesn't support that.
Right.
Everybody's like on this Steve Hilton train, and it's like, mm,
Because
okay,
the big party,
I'm really gonna vote for him.
I feel like the big party, when we think of like the bigger party, I think their goal is like, well, if we pick one person and just promote the crap out of that person, they'll win. And I'm like, that doesn't work on a state level most of the time.
No.
But what I've like, one of the things that I keep thinking of is when we saw from 2020 to 2024 the map of California flipping almost all red. I firmly believe, and people are not going to like this, but I, conspiracy theorist myself, I guess. I don't actually think that that's everyone who identifies as a Republican, but they're voting red because they're like, we're done. But they are very much liberals. They're very much independent. They're very much like, I don't even want to vote, but people are so done with the way that California is running that they're like, we don't have another choice. If we go this way, we're going to flop. We have to kind of do something to change course.
Oh yeah,
That's the
absolutely.
situation here is, I follow Steve Hilton. I thought Bianco was really mean at first, but then I just realized I was like, oh, that's just him talking. I don't like when people talk stern, and he's just very stern. And then I sat down with him, and I was like, wow, you're not bad at all. Like you're talking loud because you're projecting. Oh, duh! Like I should have known that. But then I started following Steve Hilton, and it was very much like I kind of laughed a little bit because it was very much of the social media girl who was like, look, I cleaned up LA. Look, I did this other thing. And I was like, oh, babe, no, like your PR team needs to not be 6 days behind. But Bianco and the others have been like, the day something is happening, they're calling it out. The day something's happening, they're involved. And he's just running for governor. And so I'm like, where are you? You should be frontline, man. Like, this is all you're doing. You're just kind of running for governor, and that's it. But
I like to say that on my podcast, I love to come out and say, Steve Hilton, he's really running the DeSantis playbook. Nobody really knows who he is.
which
He's
means
somebody's friend, and the Fox has really put him out. For some reason, he's got a book on how to save California, and he's kind of like politically, he doesn't have any experience, except for he helped lose in Great Britain. Um, and the other thing is, I
he was
look at who else is. Well, he had a political um, history in
when he
England.
lost. Oh, poor guy.
Well, he might say he won, but
They
He
won,
stepped
but
down.
the country lost.
the country lost.
I
Yeah.
would use that. I
So
won. They lost. And
and he ran away. And he ran away. Look, if my guy wins in California, I'm not leaving.
yeah,
If my guy loses in California, I'm not leaving because for me, it's like this is the most beautiful place to live.
yeah,
Um, I I want a better place for my kids here in California. If they decide later on to move, that's fine. I'll support them, but I want them to have an opportunity to live here.
yeah.
So I'm gonna fight how I can, and that's
Right.
just putting out content and exposing things, talking about things. I don't put myself at a level as like you had informed with Anthony on a couple weeks ago or a few weeks ago.
Yeah,
Um, but
dude.
I don't put myself at a journalism level, but we're all fighting for California, and we all message each other in the background, and we all have this mission.
Yeah,
And a lot of people say, well, the conservatives don't know how to do it. They don't know how to band together, and it's kind of true. We don't really go out and protest and burn down the cities. We don't light Waymos on fire. We don't wave Mexican flags, even though we're two, three, four generations from Mexico. Um, and that gets me to another point on these conservative influencers. This drives me so crazy. They they really uh, talk bad about the illegal immigration population here in the United States. And, I'm not standing up for the illegal immigrant population, but they come here because they want a better life. And they go to work every day. They're not just chilling at home. There is a small percentage of them that live off the government because a certain administration let them into the country and put them up in hotels in New York City and those things. But the majority of them aren't like that. The majority of them are out realistically. They're out doing the jobs that they can get, maybe under the table, however they get them. Um, so we get this view a few months ago of these are the Mexicans in protesting in Los Angeles, waving their flag. Why don't they go back to their country? Well, they can't go back to their country because if they go back to their country, they were born here and their parents were born here and their parents' were born here. They're just waving a flag that they see in their community because they live in East LA. They live in, they live off of Whittier Boulevard. But realistically, now I see this video last week of this guy in Watsonville and at this strawberry field, and he's like, "Look, they're out here waving their Mexican flag, and they're all illegal." And I'm just like, "Look, you're going after the wrong people. They're out there working hard, and they're trying to create a life here. Some of them are probably legal or in the process of becoming legal. Some of them are probably illegal. But going out there and saying we need to get ICE to come out here, you're not going to change the hearts of people that are voting in California. You're not going to get a liberal that goes, "Ooh, wow, I didn't know that they had illegals out in Watsonville waving their flag. I'm going to vote against that next time." They're not.
It's
They're
also no
really not.
conversation that we ever have here in California. I'm not like, "Hi, my name's Denisha. What's your immigration status?" Like, what? That would be insanity, and that would be rude. As like, that's a Karen moment. Karens don't do
We
that.
don't we don't even do
But
that when we vote.
No,
we don't.
we don't.
It's
We don't even check ID.
the most. Let's talk on that. No, I do think we do need to do that, but it's because I know someone who was arrested and he went to 3 counties and voted in 3 different counties here in California, and I was
Wow.
without because they didn't check, so he just went and
I didn't
voted.
know
And
we could do that. Daniel, what's going on? We need to talk about this.
I think it wasn't California, but I remember it was in the election, and I do think he ended up getting discovered and arrested. But he
Oh,
tried to go to multiple locations to vote, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, really weird thing." But it's not. It's not. I really don't like that content because it's like I have seen since I was really little. When I lived in Los Angeles and we had the drive-by shootings, we were actually there when the riots happened in the 90s. And I was like 4 or 5, and I remember it watching it on TV, and all of it came down to like, let me make you hate your neighbor. And I know when all of this stuff was happening in this last time in Los Angeles, I was just like, I don't even want to. I have a toddler, so she's 2.5, almost 3, and I'm like, I don't even want to go outside. And we went to the pool at our pool, like in our gated community, and a lot of our neighbors are Mexican. And I was just like, oh my god, no one's yelling at me. Like we're not yelling at each other. Everyone's so nice. Oh, this is real. Like the social media aspect is pushed toward us, and it's so wild to see.
Manipulative.
It is don't love your neighbor. Hate who is different than you. Hate someone who's different colored skin than you. And I've heard it my entire life where even in high school, people are like, but you're white. Don't you hate me? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't know you. So when I say like, I don't look at someone and think the first thing is their color of their skin, I legitimately don't think that because I'm like, there is a man in front of me. He, what probably if we're at a coffee shop, we're going to a coffee shop. If we're at a gas station, we're going to the gas station. When I flinch out of fear, it's because something shady feels like it's going down. And I'm like,
Yeah.
cool. I'm at a gas station alone getting gas. That doesn't feel very safe just because that's where I grew up. At
Yeah.
Los Angeles, Montana, robberies happen even more now today than ever. And women get attacked more. That's what we were taught. Like women are more prone to being attacked. Women are more prone to this. And it's like, yeah, but all my guy friends are just like, don't go to the gas station by yourself. My husband's like, you're not going to the gas station by yourself or at night. Cool. I don't do that. So I'm not getting targeted as much as someone else. But it is so sad to see the fear mongering and then the hate the person who's different than you. And I see it. That's what a lot of people don't realize they're doing when they create that video. They think that they're standing on like
stand on
moral
business.
high ground and
Yeah.
standing in business. But what you do is when I see that, I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Like
No,
you
and
why?
and that's it's interesting that you say that because one of the as a believer, one of the things that you should believe in and hold dear is to love your neighbor.
100%. It's literally
And
a Love your
every
name yourself.
everything that no, you're good. Everything that the Democrats or liberals or progressives, whatever you want to call them, it's not always all of them, but majority of them, everything that they push is to turn you against your neighbor.
They
So to
don't like
me,
want
just
you to
kind
hear.
of hearing that, that's a interesting. I've never really thought about it in that aspect, I guess.
It's to
But
create divisive division and to create hate because it's like I have seen the sweetest of old people, and I'm like, you like, sometimes my grandparents have been pretty bad, and I was like, wow, what? And it was just like, where did you learn that? It's like, oh, from TV or from this book. And I'm like, how? Like, if you just sit with someone, you'll see that they're not like that. And that's what's so wild. And I think there's just a lot. And I know like young men hear a lot more, like they're just not supposed to be masculine men and that they can't do anything right. And like that also pisses me off too. It goes the same way with like gender as well, where it's just people are like, don't women hate men, men hate women.
mhm,
If you're a different race, hate that race. If you're a different country, hate that country. And I'm like, oh, this is exhausting. Like, I
Mhm.
don't know what list you want me to hate, but I'm done. Like, I can't do this. It's just too
Yeah.
much I don't see why though creators keep doing that. And I'm just like, y'all need to get it together.
And it's not to be confused with, earlier Daniel was talking about onions. It's like I don't
Mhm.
want people to think that, oh, uh, you have this liberal Giovanni on your podcast talking about let's let all the illegal aliens stay in the United
amnesty.
States. That's
Right,
not what I'm saying.
right.
Um,
But we
I,
can do two things happening.
I'm saying that
Mhm.
that this is a complicated issue, and we have actually slowed down the crossings at the border.
Mhm.
A few months ago, it was net zero. Donald Trump came out and said it's net zero, and
Crazy.
we're solving this problem. And I'm like, okay, that's what we've wanted. We've
Right,
wanted to slow the border down. I thought that's why we wanted Donald Trump to be the president again, because we
right.
were tired of people coming in.
Because
Um,
you have on
the
that
other side,
side is there's also human trafficking that was happening. You have
yeah,
kidnapping.
it's such a mess down there at the border.
I think they said that over 600 that 600,000 children were lost in the last
Yeah,
minute. Like they don't know where they were placed in
we don't
America
like that.
border, and that's what we're like. Hey, that's not what we want. We still want
Exactly.
opportunity for people to come into this country and have a better life through the right channels, but we do not want them being kidnapped or trafficked to the U.S. and saying it's good. That's not what we want.
Exactly. And exactly, yeah. That's a very clear point, because there are a lot of people that deny or pretend like those things didn't happen. I'm not pretending that those things didn't happen. Those things clearly did happen, and I'm happy that the border crossings have gone to a net zero. That was a very big important thing for national security. The other part of that is now we have this problem where there's a lot of people here. And is it exactly fair to go and round everybody up and send them out?
Yeah.
Some people would argue, yes, you came in illegally, we got to get you out. I would argue, a certain party for the last four years, um, it almost in sense invited a lot of people in.
Well,
Maybe not putting banners everywhere, but
they were
in
saying
leaving the border open.
they were asked like, how did you hear, like what were you told, and they said I would get free health care and housing if I come to the US.
Yeah,
That's
to
what
me
they were.
that's an invitation.
i'm like
Job, healthcare, housing.
i'm like
I'm
oh,
there.
I'm like, what about me?
Let me know what country. I'm on my way.
I'm like, hold on, do I need to like go through the back route and come back in and be like, I'm not American? Yeah, they would.
so,
I wouldn't pass for sure.
so what do we do to clean that up?
Yeah,
Obviously, first things first is you go after the criminals and you
right.
get them out. We can't deny that there are criminals that came over the border, and I know that the president's been trying to work on getting those people out. We
But
know
we also
that.
need to make it 10 years for someone to get citizenship if they qualify, or 20
Yeah,
years in some cases, where it's like, I know someone who's been waiting since 2018 to get her daughter dual citizenship here. And I'm not sure that they've gotten it yet. And it's 2025 right now.
and it's
Yeah,
such a
it's a
mess.
complex issue. Yeah.
It's a
It's
complex issue, and I came out and I was like, guys, we need to reach out to your representative, tell them
yeah,
we need immigration reform.
yes.
People have been crying about it for years, and all the comments are like, no, they're here illegally. they're criminals, get them out. And I'm just like,
But
oh,
yeah, this and that's where I think we need to sit in the both and where like, look, yes, there's criminals and there's good people who wanted a better life.
and
There,
I know a lot of people think like that. They do.
we actually need to get to that, not just think it, but like get to that like
Yeah.
as a whole. Because if
I
we can get to that, I think we can meet a common ground to get to the both of like, okay, get that person who's a criminal out, but then also, is it possible? I know we can't take everybody, but work visas, can we get that to where we're bringing in people who can do that job and do a work visa? Maybe they can't come and stay here forever, but I know a lot of people who are just like, look, I want to retire back home. I just came here to work because I can actually make money here. Okay,
yeah.
work visa, but that doesn't seem to be. It's just every time I talk to
It's
people,
one or the other, isn't it?
so much, and it's not that like, oh, there's options, and I've never heard of an option before my whole life.
That's
There's no options, and that's part of the Latino free minds. The free minds part of that is, we don't want to have that sheep mentality of following everything that the conservative um,
Yeah,
uh, influencer is putting out there.
yeah,
Like DC Drano and Charlie Kirk and these folks. Uh, I consider myself conservative, but I don't go with where the wind blows. I don't go where the wind blows. I have my own mind. I
right,
have my own opinions. I grew up very Christian. I hold Christian values. I hold my family very dear. Um, I do my best at work. I've put in all the effort I have,
yeah.
and politics is kind of at the end of that.
Mhm.
As much as I like politics, everything else is more important. And I come to that, and I still have this mind with these things that are mixed in,
Yeah,
and I want to make my own opinions. But at the same time, when I go to vote, I look at things like, I don't want to pay any more taxes,
yeah,
and figure it out, get some money from that
yeah,
train situation.
yeah.
and I
Our goal isn't to like I said, focus on the extreme. It's focus on you know
California, yeah,
California and what people, everyday people that talk. They can agree on a lot of things, and we just have to talk. If we don't, then
yes.
you're always going to think the person's over here and the other person's over here, and
Well,
they never
everyone's
meet.
at that point. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
that's
that's.
super easy to find when you're looking just
Mhm.
online. When you hear
Yeah.
a lot of those bigger conservative people who I'm sure if we sat down with Charlie Kirk in person and had a long conversation, he'd be like, yeah, okay, let's talk about this. And it wouldn't come across as some of his reels do. I have seen him like change his route. I started watching him do the campus stuff, and I've seen how he talks to people, and I'm like, oh, okay, it's different. There's these different things that he does, and it's not all like rapid fire stuff.
Right.
But I like that. I watched a reel, and it was like it's rapid fire. So what do you say? Like rapid fire. I have the right to be a jerk, and I was like, I want a shirt that says that, just because sometimes I'm just like, wow. But then there's those deeper conversations that I want to have with people, and like me and my husband talk about it all the time. Is like, look, we're Christians first. We are American because that's where we were born. But we are first going to look at the Bible to say, like, okay, what should we believe as Christians? And then how are we going to use that to vote? To say, okay, are we honoring God in where we live? And I think of like Radshak, Meshach, and Abednego and Daniel in the Bible, where they were in this situation where they served the king. They held high, Daniel held a high position to that king, and then Radshak, Meshach, and Abednego were put in the fire still because they didn't bow down to this idol. And that's where it's like, as a Christian, that's where I have to get sometimes to where it's like, look, it's not going to kill me to have reform on immigration. It's not going to kill me to have a conversation to try to understand where somebody is coming from. What will kill me is if I am sitting with someone who is not wanting a Christian to live anymore and say, I hope death on you. And it's like, okay, I'm not going to go in that situation. But
Hmm.
if a country gets to a point where it just kills, if I were to be like a woman in like Iraq, Afghanistan, that's a dangerous place for me to be in.
Hmm.
But if I lived there, I'm a Christian first, and then I live where I live second. And that I don't think a lot of people think that way. So they hear like, you know, I wore my hat "In God We Trust" on 4th of July, posted that.
Love that hat. Yeah, that hat's
Me and
dope.
my daughter wore it. Like she was wearing this one. I was wearing a different one that said, like "God Bless America." Posted it on TikTok and got attacked. Like, oh, you shouldn't be having kids. Like, people foster care needs to take your daughter away because you shouldn't be raising them. And I was just like, look, I'm a Christian first. I'm an American second, but I'm going to vote in a way that's actually going to help my neighbor, and then have those hard conversations when someone's like, I don't like who I voted for. I don't like what's going on politically. It's like, hey, let's talk. Let's have that conversation. And I'm not trying to change your mind. And if you vote like, I know I'm going to be voting for Bianco for governor, but if you guys voted for someone else, I'm not going to be like, well, that's a horrible choice. I'd be like, great, let's just get someone good, like, whatever that might be. But it really comes down to like, do I think he's going to get in and actually change stuff? Yeah, I think with where he aligns with small businesses, I'm a small business owner, and just getting to know him a little bit more by watching him and hearing what he has to say. And I'm trying to watch some of the other candidates. That might change, it might not. But I'm not going to look at someone and say like, how dare you vote for someone different than me? It's like, no, but did you vote for who you felt you had the most information on? Oh, you don't have information. Okay, what are you feeling off about? Let's talk about that. And then you make your decision. I'm not going to sway you. I'm not going to say like we can't be friends anymore because you voted differently, which I see all the time right now. And that's really crazy to me too.
Yeah. And I have to say, the premise of your show of sitting down, table talk, and not arguing, but really discussing these things, that's something that we try to also do at Latino Free Minds. We've had like as an example with the Know Your Candidate segments that we have. We've had Republicans. We've tried our darndest to get Democrat candidates on there, and a couple weeks ago we had our first Democratic
Awesome.
candidate on there, and it wasn't like we weren't sitting in the background like, how do we get him, how do we trap him. It
Right.
was
You're just
more like, let's find out what he's going to do, because for us it's not about party, it's about who's going to go and fight for us. I want a fighter in there for us. And right now you talk about Chad Bianco, and for me, up to this point, I'm like, he's got the best resume. He
right.
fought for Riverside County as
Right.
sheriff. I feel like he can fight for us as governor of California. I
Right.
think that he can do it. To say that between now and next November, we might not get somebody else that can, I don't know. But right now, I'm like, he's our guy. And that's the premise. It's
And I do want to not
finding our fighters.
not to cut you off at all, sorry, but to
No.
say like, I think someone who's listening is going to be like, well, Chad Bianco let this happen in Riverside. And you guys brought up a point earlier about like, Trump was in for like a couple years and it was like, well, you're not fast enough. And it's like, he's been in 6-7 months now at this point. And people are like, you still haven't done this. And I'm like, okay, let's ask the hard question. What can you do in your job in 6 to 7 months?
Not a lot.
Not a lot. They've done a lot in the last 6 to 7 months. So we got to give it time. But still, like, even in Riverside County, there's been so many issues. And I think people forget that who comes before these individuals really did disservice, and they have to change policies and things to actually work into play. Now, not saying that Bianco or any of the other guys are, even Hilton, maybe he'll surprise us. I don't know. Katie Porter, not so much. I'm not going to be surprised. Pretty much know where she lands because of her history. But it is one of those things that, like, she's been in office long enough for me to see who she is as a person, and that we haven't really changed much in her area. But I think we have to really sit back and be able to say, like, okay, what does this person have to offer? Do I align to it? And if not, then I'm not going to vote for them. But I'm also trying to vote for not just the betterment of me, but my children and their children, because it is about the generations to come. And I think that that's where we kind of don't look at either one of those, of what the person has done and how much they had to fix first. But also in our voting, we can't just vote for what's best for us today. We learned that from 10 years ago, where we're like, our bad, everybody. We're 1825. We didn't know what we were doing. But that's where I think we have to give people a chance to actually do what they're coming in to do. We have a long history with Democrats that they're just not. And that's where we're kind of leaning toward is we gotta change the route because it's just not working.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
I agree.
And you know where they get you. So you put all the thought into it, and you really think about who's going to be the best candidate for me to vote for. And then you say Chad Bianco, and then they go, "Oh, but he knelt down with BLM," and it's like, "Oh my God,
So
really?"
let's talk about that real quick. So I have a video on, go to the Bianco video that I interviewed him on because there's a clip where I
I
found the
watched it.
full length video of him bowing down, and you hear them all say, "Let's go ahead and pray. We're going to kneel," because they started getting crazy. And so they're like, "Okay, let's kneel." Half of the police officers kneeled, but half of that other group kneeled. But then there was the person doing the other video where they're like, "Look, he bowed down," and it was like, "Oh no!" Like that guy him up, and that was the reel that went viral, was that person being like, "Look, he bowed down, he bowed down, he bowed down." But in I've been in situations like that where I didn't hear the full crowd, and it's like, shoot, dude, like we've all, like, he didn't bow down, but it's like we all make mistakes, we all misstate something at some point, we all lie, nobody is perfect. But to sit here and say that's why I'm not going to vote for him, I'm like, but you have continued to vote for bad people before, and that's the thing you're not going to vote for.
Hypocritical. Yeah.
I'm like, have you ever? I put a black square up.
I, I I'm just like,
Gio did. I
okay,
think Gio did.
Yeah,
no, I
Gio.
didn't. I didn't, but
We supporting,
even if he did,
and
even if he did kneel, it's like, who cares? You know, he was the sheriff,
and
and
we're
the
all
neighboring county is in complete disarray. I mean, there was riots that they were tearing up downtown, not even 50 miles away.
it
What is
wasn't
he supposed to do?
it wasn't like the Karen video where she's kissing people's feet. Like that didn't happen. Like, but I think also too, we also have to be honest with ourselves, is that when the BLM riots were happening, that was before the BLM organization did what they did like a year later with buying the mansions and everything like that. We didn't know that organization was bad until after the fact. So people can't pretend to know the information was present in 2020. Because there was a lot of stuff, like even my friends who are Black were like, "Oh, that is not the organization we associate with. That's not what we're trying to, nope, let's not follow that." But they are still very much against racism because we still see it today where, people will be like, "No, it's not." I'm like, yes, there is. Yes, there is. I see it all the time. But it's across the board. It's not just one specific group of people. So I think people need to show some grace that there was a lot of information that came out a year later. And that's where you can't make a judgment based off that situation when the information
Well,
wasn't
well,
known.
the media that we have and the society that we're in, it's not about what's the truth. It's about
No.
what is the feeling right now. What's the sentiment today?
And what will make up.
And that's why it got so out of hand. And
Yeah.
to me, it's like, okay, in hindsight, if he did kneel down, who cares? I say it on the podcast, like, I'll happily. I'm a 49er fan, so I have a Kaepernick jersey. I'm like, I'll wear my Kaepernick jersey. I'll put on my cowboy hat and my boots, and I'm gonna go vote for Chad Bianco. I don't care. Like,
Are you
I I'm voting for the guy that's gonna do the best thing. I want the fighter in there, like I said. I
Yeah.
want somebody that's gonna fight for me.
I get that.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes sense to me because it's like, I think if we could all get to that, like, I think that's what a lot of us are voting for, is the fighter in California. Because we when you're born and raised here, it is that thing. Like, me and my husband have talked about moving, and I'm like, I don't feel like we should, but as a small business owner, watching how much we have to pay out in California, it's just like, we won't be able to survive here if they keep hiking things up. So at some point, like, we're basically have said, like, it's not that we want to leave, but if a Republican doesn't win and doesn't start changing the direction of where California is going in, we're going to have to leave because we can't afford to live here. And that's such, like, California is my home. That's where I've been born and raised. Like, I can't see me living anywhere else. I'm like, look, I'm 30 minutes from Disneyland and like 45 from a beach, 30 to 45 minutes from a mountain. Like, I'm in the perfect location. I don't want to leave that and then have to go to snow. Who wants to go to snow? But it is that thing.
Hurricanes.
Like, no, I'm like, look, I'm not made for seasons. I'm made for a hot, sometimes 1 week of rain and then fire season, because that's California. But don't tell what is it, Karen Bass? I said that. I don't want fire season. It was just a joke. But it is really hard to watch so many people just think that like, well, California, you're just screwed. Get over it. It's your fault. Um, that makes me really that hurt. Like I get super offended when I see that where people are like, you just don't like it's
Oh, we
someone said hell. They're
yeah.
like it's gone on already, and I'm like, no, we care about California. We want to see California thrive for everybody who's here, not just for me and my family, but everybody's family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think we get that a lot, especially recently. We get that a
Mhm.
lot, like in the comments, where it's like just leave, or it's a wasteland, and it's like you're supposed to be on our side, show us some support and all that, whatever. We don't need it, but we're
Yeah,
still we're still gonna triple down,
yeah.
like Gio
I
said.
see that every
We
time I turn around.
yeah, we started with our podcast. Now we got his. We're what, helping another. We have 6 total that we're involved with, and
Dang.
it's like, you know if we're gonna use our voice to ignite change, and we think we're gonna do it. So, that's why we do what we do, because it's a mix of everything we've talked about. Is
Yeah.
it's we have kids, and we want them to have a better California than what we have now. And
Mm,
if we don't do anything about it, don't say anything about it, don't speak up about it, then what
yeah.
are they gonna have? We're already in this crappy situation. It's like, are we just gonna let it get worse, or are we finally gonna try to do something? So
It's like that reel of the lady who's like, it got worse. It got worse. I'm like, that's how I feel sometimes
Oh,
how people are just with the California. And I mean, the comments I get when I start to speak up about stuff is like, oh, you're a Christian conservative, get out of California. Like, you just need to
yeah,
leave us
yeah.
alone. You're against us. And I'm like, I'm actually not. Like, I want a good life for you. But people don't, I think because the media has pushed all of us against each other, it is that conversation that we don't know how to have anymore. Because I used to be able to sit down with a friend who was liberal, and now that person doesn't return my calls. And it's like, we can't hang out because you're a conservative Christian. I was like, I never stopped being who I was. You just kept listening to social media. But I get why. Like I literally was like, oh my god, am I gonna get jumped whenever there's a riot or something? Because I'm like, you never know.
A,
Crazy.
a common theme with the whenever there's riots in Los Angeles, it's always when because they always come out with the Mexican flags. A common theme in the comments is always, why don't we just give California back to Mexico? They're too much trouble. And it's like you do realize that California has the highest amount of registered Republicans than any other state in the country.
Right.
This is a point that I love to make. And if you really think about it, the California politics, everybody else tries to replicate it. So when you think about the Democratic Party, you have to realize that whatever the next step the country moves into, it's going to be to follow what California is doing, because they see the playbook that's happening here, where Gavin Newsom wants to turn everything, every represent. He wants to get rid of 5 representatives for the Republican Party and make them Democrats, uh, which doesn't make sense because the last election, 40% were for Trump.
47%. 47.
47% now. That's even better.
Yeah.
But he wants to minimize us, when in reality is the state actually has a pretty diverse voting population.
Yeah. And
Um,
we're not represented equally in California at
yeah.
all. Even
If you
even
look,
independents. I don't think independent is represented fairly either because I think
nobody's represented except for the
100%
far left wing Democrats.
yeah. But I,
So
I think when I hear people say that, like we should give California back to Mexico, I'm like, okay, logically, this is just where my brain goes. I'm like, if you gave California to Mexico, it would not be part of the US. So it does nothing except for keep you out of the US. So Mexico bleeds all of its problems over to wherever it touches. That's what happens. It just gives Mexico a bigger space. And that's where people don't even get to that logic. They're just like, give it back to Mexico. It's like, well, Mexico sold it. It didn't want it back. But if you were to do that, sure, it still wouldn't be part of the US. So you then would be kicked out because you are a US citizen in Mexico, you would then have to go somewhere else because
Yeah.
you got deported. So I'm like,
Suddenly Arizona's blue and
it's like, oh my gosh, Arizona would be mad. But it is something where it's I get why though. So many people are like, but why? You know, because I think a lot of this is we've been taught to hate each other. And then we've all been lied to. And we have to look up that information ourselves. We have to see what's true. I'm not like I don't care if you have your house with your flag from your country and then that's being flown. I don't like when you're sitting here saying like, give me back what's mine. And it's like, you didn't earn it. You know,
yeah.
you what's yours is literally what's in your bank account. But I don't own any property. I don't like when LA County freeway gets shut down and people get put into danger because they can't get home because people are rioting and being bullies. Like that, I'm like, no, you want to go and get mad? Cool. Don't do it to where it hurts somebody else or destroys somebody else's business. Those are the things that like I've never agreed to. And that's where I'm like, that's no longer a safe situation for me to even be that. That's like, I've never been one to be like, let's go riot. I'm like, no, I don't even want to protest. I'm going to stay home.
I got things to do. Got to
I'm
pay
just going
rent
to
tomorrow.
watch it.
Yeah,
I
and
don't
yeah, the people flying flags, it doesn't really bother me either.
I don't care.
Like if I'm driving by, I might like mumble to myself like this freaking guy, but I'm not gonna go and get all upset. But at the same time, it's like I've always said, and I've said this before on the podcast, is you know, if only there was a flag in the United States that um, meant for, that was able to, for all citizens, just unite us. If only there was a flag that would just put us
You're
all together on one, right? Like,
the big
I wish that would exist. You know, maybe make it like red, white, and blue. I don't know.
little
Some
stars.
stars on it, a few stripes or something. I don't know.
Yeah, that's we do have a flag, but we also have a California flag. And for some reason, when I was little, I thought that that made us bad, like a bad state, because I was like, why? Like, why can't we just fly the American flag?
Yeah,
And
I
there was
love
no
the flag.
state flag, and I was like, but why? Like, is that? I just didn't understand it. But it is like I'm like, look again, like if you want to fly at your house, I think you should be able to show your pride like that, but it shouldn't be forced on anybody. It shouldn't be forced in classrooms, and I've seen that happen too with pride flags and everything like that. It's like that's not okay, but it's like you're at your home, cool, whatever. But public wise, like I even kind of laugh at the guys who have the big trucks where they have like the Trump flags and stuff. I always laughed at that. I thought that was just really funny. I was like, you guys are just stupid. And it's on the freeway. There's like six of them on their truck, and I'm like, bro, like say what you're not saying. Like, let's just go there with that. But like, it is that thing where I'm like, I get that that person is just like, I see it differently. I think now it's like, I really want to save this. And I really want, there's still a lot of passion behind a lot of people, but we can't take our passion and turn it into bullying. We can't take it to degrading somebody just because it's true. It's like we can be kind in the way that we say something that's true. We don't have to be the let me get you below the belt stab. Like we can be kind in our approach. And I think that's what we need to do going forward in California. Like don't share the conservative videos that are offensive. Like just stop sharing it. You want people to stop making content like that? Stop giving it attention. They can still share it, but we don't have to share it. We don't have to comment on that video to help it go viral. We can choose then to go and take that comment and be like, you know what? I'm going to go to a video that's your guys' content talking about the different candidates. Let me go comment on that instead and share that instead, because that's going to be something to actually help someone, inform someone versus make someone be like, and that person is a jerk. I'm never going to talk to them ever again. Because it is sad. It's sad to watch. Do you guys have anything else you guys would like to add before we end abruptly?
No, just
This was a good conversation.
no, just thank you for having us on.
Yeah.
And you know, like we said at the beginning, we're trying to, you know, do things that are a little different than
Yeah.
what people are doing, and you know,
Thank you.
it's it's
Yeah.
it's it's the longer route, I would say. You know,
Yeah.
you don't get all the engagement that you want right off the bat, but you know, I
Yeah.
think we're trying to do things the right way and inform people the right way, and you know, just again, thank you for inviting us on.
Thank you guys for being on. You guys, please follow along with them. Follow all 6 of their podcasts, listens to the show. Their information is really good. There's things that I'm learning from them that I had no idea. I am starting to share and just really sit in that information because it's a lot sometimes. And I think having that information that doesn't feel like it's attacking, but more informative is so much better. Follow along. If you guys have questions, let us know. Put them in the comments and just make sure to subscribe. And we'll talk to you guys later.
Thank you.